There's an old Greek proverb that says, "A society grows great when its old men plant trees and know that they will never get to sit in the shade of them." Interesting. Here I am, an old man, 70. And I want to plant some trees with your help, metaphorical ones, of course. And what would I want to plant trees to protect, to shade, to nurture? I'd like to plant trees to nurture and protect the future. But the future is not a word, is not an idea. The future is our children. I am a grandfather, a father, and a great-grandfather, and a citizen who feels that I have some responsibilities to my children, my grandchildren, and any children with whom I come in contact. And that responsibility, in my mind, is to help protect them against the future. To me, in my mind, there's some kind of a threat in the future. Let me address that. But to do that, let's just say this much. I think the threat to our future is what the future will bring to us as humans through technology. The worry that sits resident in my mind is, well, will that future alter inexorably my children and my grandchildren so they are no longer fully human? Will it eat away at what is their essential humanity? So let's take a look at the threat. Let's go right back to the very beginning. The garden, where somebody gave somebody a piece of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. They had computers back then too, you know. I hear it was an apple, but unfortunately, it crashed after one bite. But through my lifetime, I've actually seen things change considerably, in terms of technology, that is. And before I started in this world, in 1900, let's say, at the beginning of the 20th century, a thinker of the time named Buckminster Fuller, talking a little bit about the future, said he believed that knowledge and information, which is what we're really looking at if we're looking at the future, will double completely in 100 years. Wow. Everything man has ever learned to that point, doubling in 100 years. But by the end of the Second World War, they were saying, oh yes, things have changed now. All information and knowledge that man has ever discovered is doubling every 25 years. But now, information is doubling every 13 years. And what's making that possible is computers. A little bit better than that original Apple, I must say, but computers. Computers and technology have become our help aids in life. And so how are computers a threat? Well, one of the noted futurists of today is a man by the name of Raymond Kurzweil. Look him up, Kurzweil. This man's a scientist, a thinker, a creator, an inventor of note, and the man who's actually inspired 3 presidents so far to give him the award as being the most important technological advancements came from his mind during the years that they were in office. So he's somebody. And Raymond Kurzweil has taken a look at this constant increasing knowledge and also paired it with the evolution and miniaturization of computers, of which he's actually quite an expert, because at age 15, where there weren't that many computers around, he built his own computer and taught it how to write music. Pretty impressive. So here he is, a man closing on my age, and he says when he looks into the future, with the rapidly increasing level of technological advancement and miniaturization of computers, our knowledge levels are going to want us to become better. It's always been that need since we started, and we bit that apple and decided how delicious it was to get new information. That new information and that growth of knowledge will lead to, he believes, in the year 2045, a different kind of human being. That kind of human being will be necessary, he thinks, to keep up with at least the incredible rate at which knowledge will be growing. In fact, computer experts like himself are saying that by that time, 2045, all information known about man and his development to this point will be increasing every 12 hours. If you could just imagine that kind of informational flooding into your life, it will create a changed person. So he thinks that we need to prepare ourselves for that singularity. When humans and machines become less different from each other, we become part machine. And we'll need to do that because how can we otherwise deal with this level of information that will be coming? It will change us totally. So our brains will have to be much better than they are now. So they'll be augmented by nanocomputers resident in our skulls that will increase our ability to think and our speed of thinking by 4 times. Nanobots floating through the air will be able to create food out of nothing, just like Star Trek. And nanobots, being tiny, will be living and swarming through all our bloodstream, killing disease, stopping disease, and actually attacking the ravages of aging so that we will become effectively immortal, long-aged people. So I think that's the threat. If I, as a father and a grandfather and a great-grandfather now, want to be of any help to my children and grandchildren, I really have to think of this time, far ahead of now, and start thinking, what can I do now? So first of all, the problem, advancing technology. What is it that we can do about that? Well, first of all, if we're going to lose our humanity, if I'm worried about losing what is essentially our core humanity, it would make some sense to understand what that means. What of value is it that's human? So I went to the best source I could think of, my 11-year-old grandson. He's smart, and I was keen to hear what he might think about future and what we need to save. So I said it to him, I just want you to think for a minute about the very far future. It may even involve you, where people are going to become part machine. We may live to a very great age. And this will threaten the sort of key things that we actually prize and value now as being humans. So if you knew that this was coming and you knew you could do something now to make that a better life in the future, to preserve humanness if we can, what things about humanity would you want to save? So he put on his little thinking cap. He said, caring about other people. I like that. Intelligence. And in my mind I added keeping in touch and being present with other people, and imagination and creativity. Yes, those are very good things we would need to save. So let's look at each one of these things individually, if we may. Caring. Caring is something, if I wanted to try and protect and nurture caring, I'd plant the tree of caring with my children, my grandchildren, but I couldn't say, you've got to be more caring with other people. Words are useless. I'd have to model it. Kids are not stupid, you know. You can say something as an adult, but if you don't live it, they know the difference. They know it immediately. And they therefore shut it out. They don't listen to what you're saying because there's a dissonance between what you're saying and what you're doing. You know, you got to do what you promise. So this will be the hardest tree for me to actually plant, because if I'm to be a good model grandfather person in the caring world, I want to show it to them by modeling how I care for them and their parents. So they have something they can look and say, well, yeah, okay, that's how grandpa does it. In their minds, maybe, maybe not. But caring is important, because with caring, we actually are of great value to each other. Because without caring, the world would be a very empty place, I believe. So the thing with intelligence, unfortunately, and with supreme intelligence, it might lead to humans thinking that they're better than each other. My grandkids are very intelligent. It's a very important human trait. But I would like to hope that they don't look upon others that aren't as intelligent as themselves as being less. Because we as humans consider ourselves to be at the top of the pyramid, and it's partly because of this little bit of frontal lobe up here that helps us actually think better. And so it makes us think we're better than the animals, and as a result, we've often treated animals with very little caring. So I think intelligence is great, but intelligence must be tempered with caring. So that if you have intelligence, use it well. Use it well to help other people, to help the world around you. Don't just, wallow in the great fact that you're smart. So caring and intelligence. good things to protect. Trees we need to plant, I think, but we need to do it by example. What else? Okay, being present. Well, you can walk in almost any open public space in the world right now, surprisingly, even in very poor countries too, and you see people walking about, looking like humans. What will you see? You will see people who are texting on their phones, talking on their phones, listening on their earbuds. These people are virtually not there, not present. If you try to talk to them, you really have to get their attention because they're concentrating on something else. They're elsewhere. And this is actually the part of technology that I'm more fearful of. Because if you take a look at the future that has been promised us by science fiction writers for a long time, some of them have said, well, there will come a point. There's this point that Ray Kurzweil calls the singularity. There's going to be this point where a machine becomes self-aware, so intelligent that it realizes these puny human beings that made me are lesser than myself, and therefore I will need to get rid of this scourge on the earth and end humanity so I can create a perfect environment for myself as a machine. That's a scary prospect for my grandchildren. But I'm actually of the mind now that that's not how it's going to happen. What's happening, as I believe it, is sort of a gradual process. From the very beginning of that faulty apple in the garden to now, we have been sort of invited into the world of technology. The ads have been wonderful and colorful. Right back to showing a woman how she doesn't have to wash in a tub anymore. We can now do it with an automatic washing machine. What a wonderful gift. You'll have more time to do all the other things that women have to do. Of course, that was in a very male-dominated society. We don't think like that anymore. But the ease of which we can live our lives thanks to technology is a cushion that we lean on quite often. And we're becoming more and more dependent. It's a slow and subtle process of us being taken over and our lives being altered by our existence in and with technology. It's a love affair of sorts. Okay? I liken it to the storied frog. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard this story. If you were to take a frog and drop it into a pot of hot water, what would the frog do? It would jump out. Sure, frog's not stupid. But if you put that frog in a nice cool pool of water sitting in a pot on a stove and just subtly and ever so gently you increase the temperature, frog doesn't notice it. Accommodates gently to each of those temperature changes until all of a sudden it's too hot. Frog gets cooked. Frog is dead. I'm not saying that we're going to die from leaning on this gentle and increasing pressure of technology that's coming to help us in our everyday lives, but I am saying that it is altering who we are, essentially. This change is starting now. We see it, as I say, as we walk amongst the crowds. We go into restaurants and we see people sitting around a table, hopefully having a family dinner, but everybody's on their phones. It's insidious. So, if I want to plant a tree for my grandchildren and my children to help them survive this incremental incursion into their lives by technology, what will I do? I'll plant a tree of a sort that gives them opportunities to experience life without technology. We'll have dinners without any kind of technology there. We'll go for a walk in the forest. Kids who are deeply immersed in the virtual world, I think, need to have a taste of reality, to actually get out where it's real. Leave all those phones and those earbuds and everything at home and smell the grass, feel the breeze, see a waterfall and be amazed, be stunned by the color of a small flower. In these quiet moments of appreciation when all of a sudden a deer walks across the path, kids love this. It's like a wow experience for them that they haven't had before. And if they have, they want more of it. I want to plant that tree so that the kids that I'm influencing in their future will remember these points of time when they're with other people and they're present. They're not totally immersed in the virtual world. They're actually with people. They can smell them, pardon the expression. They can see the little tells that they have when they're talking, which gives you far more information about a communication than just seeing a little tiny screen and a face, I'm suggesting. Okay, so getting down to making all these things work, we have a factor out there that actually interferes with everything we just talked about, and it's fear. We are living in a fear-filled society. We're afraid, our children out in the streets, we don't let them play like we used to when I was a kid. We're afraid to eat foods because we could get poisoned by them. In fact, there's so much fear out there that there even is a fear of fear itself, a phobia of phobias. So we're getting very good at this fear game. And children, like adults, have fears. And fear is the death of creativity and imagination. And it is also the death of intelligence. In fact, just as an aside, when a psychologist wants to test you for your intelligence, they need to know if you've been undergoing any stressful emotional experiences recently, because that will actually down your intelligence by measurable amounts. So we need to actually plant a different kind of a tree for kids who are fearful, and there are a lot of them around. Everybody has fears. We have to show them that we as adults have fears too, but we are doing things to cope with the fears. We have to model to the kids that we are responsible to that fear is okay. We know it's out there, but let's use it to our best advantage. Let's model to them that we are making actions to cope and use our fear to help us rather than hurt us. And you look around, the news, even our governments know fear is a tool. If people are fearful, they're far more malleable and easy to control, less likely to be intelligent, thinking, and people who are actually demonstrating against the power of the government. So, as an old man, planting trees to try and protect our youth, my kids, my grandkids, from what may happen in their future, I'd like to invite you all to just to join my last experimental tree. Please all stand up. It's only going to take a few seconds. I want you to turn to the person next to you and give them a hug. A meaningful hug. Okay, don't get too much into that because time's running out. This is the last and the easiest of all the trees you can plant, because the best way to demonstrate to another person that you care is to give them a hug. Go out there, plant your trees, make a forest, protect our future, protect our children. Join me.